to the Omega Metroid podcast. My name is Andy Spiteri, joined, as always, by Dakota Lasky. Dak, how you doing today?
Not too bad, not too bad. It's been a pretty regular kind of week, just kind of a little busy with work lately, but otherwise, trying to game here and there and take things as easily as I can. Nothing too crazy on my front, nothing very exciting, unfortunately. What about you, man?
Oh man, I've had a heck of a day. I've tons of kinks and things to work out in this new house of mine, including my podcast setup. So trying to nail that down so this thing can sound as good as it can. So bear with me while all you loyal Metroid listeners out there. Other than that, I can't complain too much. It's finally starting to feel a little festive, a little seasonal, and I'm all about that. And maybe, kind of seeing some light at the end of the tunnel that this 2020 year has been. So, all things considered, doing pretty good.
That's good, man. It's crazy that I feel like we've said this so many times. It's crazy. It's this, it's crazy. It's that. But it is really wild that it's December 7th right now. The fact that it is now closer to March 2021 than the previous March is insane to me. It's been a wild year. I'm glad everyone I hope everyone's been sticking with us the best they can. And the nightmare continues as we roll into 2021. Time is just a construct, so it doesn't end until it's over. I don't know. I don't have any high hopes for the next year. I hate to be that guy, but we'll see how it goes. Hopefully things turn around for the better soon.
Hopefully you're just dead wrong. I'm really hoping.
I hope I am,
and
too.
I'm sure that you are, too. All right, well let's get to some fun stuff here. We kind of got a smorgasbord of things to cover here today on the Omega Metroid podcast, which is actually kind of fun because I like just kind of jumping around into what's topical and what's happening, and lots of the different rumors that are swirling around. I guess let's just kind of pick one to start with here, and maybe the most apropos, the craziest one I think that we should just start with is this new Galactic Federation that apparently there's an alien civilization calling themselves a Galactic Federation. And this is real life, folks, and they've supposedly been in contact with Israel and the U.S. for years, and they're keeping themselves a secret to prevent mass hysteria until humanity is ready. This was an article published that I just had the pleasure of reading. You just shared with me. If this doesn't seem like Federation Force, I don't know what does.
I see. Yeah, this is an episode where I'm like, wow, there's so much news to talk about. I feel like this is the most news-laden episode we could possibly have, and what better way to start off with than a literal Galactic Federation? So yeah, Federation Force. We've done some coverage on it, and I think we're putting Federation Force over a bit. I think people are kind of catching on to it, and now it's becoming a little cooler. I can't think of any other sci-fi properties that also have a Galactic Federation. I'm sure Metroid isn't the first, isn't the last. I'm sure there are some other ones that also have a Galactic Federation, and the fans of those franchises are like, "Oh, it's not Metroid." It's actually, I don't know. I'm trying to think of some sci-fi property, and I can't think of one. So there you go. Maybe it is just Metroid. But anyway, yeah, this was something reported by the Jerusalem Post, and saying apparently the former space security chief of Israel saying that the aliens have been in cooperation and talking to humans with an underground base on Mars that have American and alien representatives. And apparently this is why the Space Force might have been created. It's a whole thing. It's a lot of fun. And, there's so many things going on in 2020. I feel like, why not? Aliens. I think aliens haven't really gotten a fair shake this year. It's been a very overbooked year, right? Like, remember how there were the killer hornets? Like, there were going to be some killer wasps or something coming into, North America.
They didn't even get, they didn't even get their 15 minutes of fame.
That's what I'm saying. It was like a day. It was
on.
like a week at tops, maybe, and then just everything moved on from there. It was like, wow, that's we didn't even get clowns this year. Like, so much has happened in 2020 that aliens didn't even really get their kind of time in the spotlight. So I appreciate that we're getting a little bit of that to round out the year. So I think plot wise, I think this is it's a good detour, right? Before things really go off the deep end, the narrative needs, gotta, let things build up a little bit again before it really goes, off the cliff. And I think Aliens is a good way to do that, to kind of, keep the pace in check. I think this is cool. Yep. Galactic Federation being a real thing. Who knows what else is real,
I love this, man. It fits right in with the vibe of 2020. But, hold on for a second here. Imagine that this is true, okay? Imagine that this is true. So this means that, A, there are other life forms in this universe, which is sweet. B, we've figured out a way to communicate with them, which is sweet. And C, they are open to working with humanity, which is sweet. This is really good news all around. So I'm about this.
I don't know. I'm reading this article, and they're saying that the Galactic Federation apparently stopped this information from being revealed because they didn't want humanity to, they didn't want mass hysteria, because they feel like humanity needs to evolve and reach a stage where we'll understand what space and spaceships are. They don't think very highly of us. What's to say this Galactic Federation, is really just doesn't even care enough to come over here and just, stomp us out, but easily could if they wanted to. I don't know. This isn't good. I'm on the side of, if aliens exist, we get bodied if they even, we suck on, in terms of the space, metagame, right? In terms of other species existing in the galaxy. Humans, we've barely gotten to the moon and, other parts of our galaxy. Other aliens would destroy us in a 1v1. So, I don't know. I think it's all a front. Once they want to turn on us, that they'll decide to. It'll be all over. Except maybe for us Metroid fans, who are shown to be open, towards other, species in the galaxy. I guess not, because actually we like Samus, and Samus spends a whole game exterminating a specific species. So I don't know. Maybe we're actually screwed.
This is either going to be really a cooperative partnership, or we're going to finally get the plot of Metroid 5 in real life.
This is the plot of Metroid 5. Yeah, this is how it starts.
Yeah. So yeah, you should check that out. It's at it's over at the Jerusalem Post. I think that one of our followers tweeted it out over on Omega Metroid. I'm sure it's not hard to find, so you should go read this. It's good stuff. All right, let's kind of jump around here. And Dak, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Nintendo, because they are they're a little bit under fire from a small but vocal section of the internet about their cease and desist practices and their protection of their IP. And we kind of had a little bit of an exchange earlier today. I tweeted out something to the effect of and I'm not, I just want to preface this too with I don't want to sound like I'm making excuses for Nintendo, and I'm also not really involved in any competitive kind of scene or anything like that. And I know that you are much more than I am. So I wanted your opinion, but I also, you know what, Dak, I want your opinion and then I'll add mine after.
Okay. So specifically on the cease and desist stuff?
Well, and you know what? Actually, let me back up here. Let me make sure that I have the timeline of events here correct, because the latest outcry really started last week or the week before, when Nintendo basically sent a cease and desist to a group of Super Smash Bros. Melee players because they had modded Melee so that they could play it from a socially distant place. Is that correct, more or less?
Yeah, so there's something called Slippy, which is for all intents and purposes, it's a mod of Melee that you would use. You play Melee on emulated version on your PC, right. And Slippy allows you to play Melee online with people because Melee for the GameCube isn't online enabled, and without being able to play locally with people during the pandemic, Slippy got really popular. It was already a pretty popular thing before COVID, but it jumped considerably when local tournaments stopped happening, because it was the only way for people to really play Melee. And it's really well done. The connection is much better than Ultimate's net code, and it's made by one person who even like quit their job to essentially run the whole thing. So it's
So
a
I
very
want to.
like it's like a well like kind of like grassroots kind of built thing, and then
Right.
it was going to be used for a tournament called the Big House, which is one of Melee's annual majors, so to speak. It's one of the major tournaments of the year, and obviously it's not happening in person because of COVID. So the Big House is going to happen using Slippy. Big House got cease and desisted by Nintendo because they were using the Slippy mod to make the tournament happen, and so they had to
Right, and I,
cancel
and I
the
want to keep
tournament.
my timeline kind of going here, and again, correct me if I'm mistaken, but they were served the cease and desist, and basically they defied that and went ahead with the tournament anyways. Is that correct?
As far as I know, it looks like they tried to. I'm not sure on the specific details, but I know it seems like they were told not to do it. Like, hey, don't do this, and they were like, well, we're gonna run the tournament anyway. They got C and D'd, or they were just like they announced that they were running it with Slippy. They're running the tournament, and it got cease and desisted. I don't remember the exact specific details, like whether or not they truly knew, like in the background, like the TOs, but I think they were, they tried to work with Nintendo and tried to like make it get the all good, and they didn't really get it, so they tried to run it anyway, and then Nintendo sent them the
Right.
C&D.
Right, and that obviously sparked the whole free melee campaign. There was
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be a Splatoon event that I think was going to be live streamed, and I believe it was hosted by Nintendo. But then they decided that they weren't going to live stream it because everybody there essentially was wearing free melee T-shirts, and like all the top teams dropped out. So they've been catching some flack over that.
Yeah.
There
So
was
there was
some. Go ahead.
no, yes. So yeah, there was the Splatoon. They jumped in with the free melee thing, and there's been a connection between competitive Smash and competitive Splatoon since Splatoon was announced and came out. A lot of
Right.
people there's been overlap between the communities. Splatoon showing up at Smash tournaments as well. So they were in solidarity, showing support for the Smash community, especially because Splatoon also is kind of plagued by a lot of the same like lack of support stuff from Nintendo a lot of the time, like in terms of prizes and availability of tournaments and the actual development of the game in terms of like the netcode and all that. And so they were in solidarity with the melee players. A lot of the teams and like the players had like free melee or some kind of variation in their team name, which
Right.
resulted in they wouldn't be able to stream it essentially unless they wanted to have all those team names and players on stream. So they canceled the stream, and then yeah, a bunch of the teams dropped out. They ended up playing in this community grassroots invitational called the I think the Squid House. Obviously, play on the Big House, and it ended up growing to like a $25,000 prize pool, like fed by the community in like 24 hours. Really crazy, really awesome. Shout out to the Splatoon community; they're awesome people.
Right.
And yeah, so that was a whole big thing too, like further jumping in on the free melee wave.
And so I guess the third piece of the puzzle here is they recently sent out a cease and desist to someone that was making custom Joy-Con skins. I believe. I think it was just skins, and they were for I think in memory of a YouTuber named Itika, and obviously people weren't very happy with that either. I think that whoever was making them was selling the proceeds, or was sorry, donating the proceeds to a charity, if I have that right.
Yeah, the Etika Joy-Cons were C
Etika, I'm
and
sorry.
D. Yeah, they were C and D because I assume because they are using like the Joy-Con or Nintendo imagery. That one just seems like coincidentally happening around the same time, right? Like it's
Right.
unrelated to the free melee stuff, but it's also a C and D, and it's for something that was for related to Etika, who passed away, and for a charitable cause, right? And not making any kind of profit, right, off of the property, which might be arguable in other cases, but that's something where like, okay, like there's no way, like they're not profiting off of the Nintendo IP, so why, like there's no way you could be making missing out on profits here, Nintendo, that kind of deal. And happening coincidentally around the same time as all of this, fed into the already stoked fire.
Right. So my thing is it like I kind of feel I have two different levels of response here because like I mean, in generally speaking, I'll just say this as a blanket statement. I think that Nintendo is probably too overprotective of their IPs, and if they were a little bit more rigid, a little bit more willing to compromise, and a little bit more flexible, they would have a better public image. I do understand though why they're doing it, and I think that so part of the thing that I'm reading online is like, there's a lot of people that are absolutely furious with Nintendo, and to me, I guess my whole thing is like, you know what, I understand why people are disappointed in this move, but I also, like, as an outsider, I'm just like, well, what did you expect? Like, Nintendo is notorious for doing this. Look at AM2R. Like, when you started that project, you had to know that eventually Nintendo was going to come after you and demand that you shut down this project. And we've seen that in Pokemon. We've seen that everywhere. We've seen that in Zelda. Nintendo is very, very, very protective of their IPs. So, like, part of me is like, what did you expect when you started this project? And I don't understand the outrage every time it happens, like, again and again. I think that because the intentions were really good about this Slippy mod and for the Etika Joy-Cons, that the intention obviously wasn't to take anything away from Nintendo, but, like, at the same time, I feel like if you're going to protect your IP in one case, you have to protect it in every case. Otherwise, it's never going to work. So, like, I kind of felt like I was defending them a little bit, and that wasn't necessarily my intention.
Licking the boot here, Andy. Licking that boot. Tasty,
Well,
isn't it?
I just, like, I can see both sides, like.
Well, I think, all right, so I think it's a multifaceted thing here, but my biggest sticklers on it is, number one, some of the best things in gaming have come through mods. Like, you wouldn't have, like, Counter-Strike, Dota. So many huge franchises exist because they were modded from other games. Or other games have, like, their community has grown or last longer because mods came out. So many other companies have handled this same situation so much better than Nintendo that it's hard to be like, yeah, but I understand what they're saying. Like, what else are they supposed to do? Like, it's not like Valve has any trouble managing their IP because some people mod, have Gary's mod or mod Half-Life or mod Counter-Strike. It's not like they can't also protect the imagery of those games and the property itself from some other company that would want to use it, right? Like, there's an easily a balance that could be met and has been met many times before. I don't think that the notion that just because they have to defend a copyright in one area means they have to defend it everywhere is necessarily true, because I don't think it is. Second, it seems so unnecessary because it's like they feign this, oh, we support the players, like, we love their passion for the games, but at the same time they C&D this kind of stuff and don't work with the community to try and, like, make things better. For, like, the reason the stuff's being modded is because Nintendo has, like, crappy net code for Smash, or they don't support the community. Actually, it's not like, it's coming from a need, right? It's not because, like, people are just trying to screw Nintendo out of their money. And in the case of, like, AM2R, I mean, AM2R was being developed for 10 years. I don't really think the guy making it was anticipating that Nintendo would necessarily C&D it 10 years prior. Because I think everyone kind of had maybe he had a better idea of what Nintendo could be acting like 10 years in the future, right? Like, didn't expect that it would really come to that. And at the same time, I don't think it should. So that's why people, respond the way they do every time this thing happens, the C&Ds happen, because it shouldn't be this way. And the only really way to challenge it is if you do this kind of stuff and be like, hey, C&D me if you're really going to, and people are going to, be up in arms about it when you do. Otherwise, it doesn't change, right? So, I mean, when Melee was initially C&D'd, or Evo was C&D'd from having Melee on their streams back for, Evo 2013, whatever it was, that only got changed because the whole internet, freaked out about it for 28 hours, right? Or whatever, 24 or 48 hours. And then it got changed. So, and they were able to stream it. So, it's kind of like, yeah, like, obviously they should know that Nintendo's going to respond this way, but they shouldn't be responding this way. And the outrage is what helps change things. You got to do something about it, and you got to be able to react and let people know, hey, this isn't all right. Like, this isn't cool. Like, I get they want to protect their IP, but, like, how is this really? How is not letting a big house online run, or AM2R exists. Like, how is that really hurting Nintendo's profits? And the thing is with AM2R is at least they made Samus Returns, right? At least they made their own Metroid remake. There is no online Melee for people, you know? There is no, like, official Etika charity Joy-Cons, whatever it is. So, like, they're filling a demand that's there that Nintendo isn't filling and for some reason refuses not to. So, yeah, I think it's multifaceted, but I really don't think it's at all necessary for them to be doing any of this C&D stuff. I think it's so archaic every time they do it. And so are the many other companies show time and time again that you can handle this situation so much better than how Nintendo does it, that I really can't feel at all bad for them when everyone gets mad at them for doing this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, I don't feel bad for them for sure for Nintendo. Like, it's. I mean, you're right. It's not like they're taking. Maybe you could argue in the case of AM2R specifically, that game might have decentivized people to pick up Samus Returns, but I mean that's kind of a fluke scenario. I mean, you know, obviously they're not making Super Smash Bros. Melee online, right? So, like, I understand the outrage. I guess my thing is, like, you know what, maybe they shouldn't react that way, but they do, and people know that they do. And, like, if I were a modder, like, I wouldn't even touch Nintendo stuff because I know that all my hard work is going to basically get, like, flush down the toilet the second that Nintendo comes calling with their.
I guess it's easy to say that though, but like when your favorite games are Nintendo games and everyone you play with are passionate about a game and its community, it's, you know, it's hard to just be like, well, I'll just work on something else, you know.
And you know what? Maybe therein lies the difference between a Nintendo and a Valve, because like Nintendo has the most famous gaming IPs, you know, in video games, right? Like by and large, they have the most famous and probably the most worked on. So. I mean, yeah, it's a multifaceted kind of an issue. It's probably an issue that's not going to change. I saw someone today, I think you responded to him actually, Dak, say that like Nintendo needs to make a statement or something. They're not going to make a statement. I'm sure they're not.
Oh, absolutely not. There's no reason for them to.
Right.
That would only be drawing attention to it. A majority of people who play Nintendo games probably don't even know this is happening, except if they might have read like the Kotaku or IGN articles about it. And even then, like, I don't. Yeah, Nintendo's never.
I would say like
90%
of people that play Nintendo games probably either don't know,
don't care,
like, especially
don't know
care.
or don't care. Yeah, no, 100% agree, and that's what, and that's the problem too. Is that, you know, when you look at like a Valve game or like Riot or Blizzard or whatever, like the competitive side and all of that and the community based stuff is very tied, I think, to the game, right? Whereas Nintendo, there are a ton of people who just casually play the game, maybe, you know, just on their own, and have no connection to following the industry or news about games and stuff like that, you know, other than maybe at a very surface level. So yeah, they can easily get away with doing this kind of stuff. And even if a lot of people knew, they're still going to put out some Mario game or Pokemon game or Animal Crossing game that's going to, you know, sell 1 billion copies, and it's going to make all of this stuff negligible, you know, in the grand scheme of things.
I think what it comes down to, like, kind of the basic gist that I picked up is that, you know, people are mad that Nintendo cares more about their own IPs than they do, like, the competitive community, or at least for the free Melee, particularly. And yeah, I think that that's obviously true. Nintendo cares more about its IPs. That's probably their number one. Like, they care more about their IPs than anything else. And I think you nailed it. Like, a lot of these other games, like, competitive scene really is tied into, you know, how these games are viewed and how they're played. And like with Nintendo, it's not really that way, and it's never traditionally been that way either. So I don't know. I hope that it changes in the future. But you know, in Nintendo, if they're one thing, it's slow to change. So
yeah, that's the thing. And I think another thing too is that a lot of people expected, you know, I mean, I remember when Splatoon 2, I think it was, they had that commercial where like a bunch of people like are in a big esports arena and Splatoon 2 is being played. It's like, it's all promotion, right? It's all like smoke and mirrors. And it sucks to like kind of be reminded of that over and over, like Nintendo's feigned support of the competitive scene. But, you know, we'll see how it goes. Unfortunately, I don't see things getting better. I've said for years I don't think Nintendo's ever going to care like we want them to in terms of competitive stuff, and that's why I play more other games competitively more often lately, like rather than like Smash or Splatoon. But shout outs to the Smash community and Splatoon community. You know, two communities I've been involved in for a while. Stepping up to the plate every time and like really letting people know like, hey, this is whack. this sucks. So this should change, and trying to make that happen, especially because the big house is like a quintessential competitive Melee tournament too. Sucks that it kind of went down that way,
Sure.
but we'll see how it goes. Hopefully, we get some good news in the future, and who knows? Maybe Melee Online is right around the corner. We don't even know it.
Uh, who knows? I mean, there could be anything coming around the corner. You know what? We'll end on this. I'm not really involved in competitive anything really because I'm generally not very good at video games. But for those that are, for those that put their blood, sweat, and tears into these events and stuff like that, I hope that Nintendo comes around eventually. So yeah, we'll end on that. One place that we could see Smash Online announced is the Game Awards, which are just around the corner here. They are later this week on the 10th of December. Apparently, there are a whole slew of video game announcements to be had during there. So I don't know. You know what? I'm not super jazzed up for the Game Awards, to be honest. I remember back in like 2016, we had a lot of Breath of the Wild stuff. In 2017, we had the Champions Ballad DLC. In 2018, I think we had some cool stuff. But the last
Joker,
2 years,
I think then.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
The last 2 years, especially last year, my God, watching the Game Awards and watching them and like covering them to see if there was any breaking news coming out, I could have watched paint dry last year and been just as entertained. I don't know if you watch the Game Awards or if you follow them, but like I just remember last year's show in particular was just horrid. It was so bad, and I'm not really super pumped to watch them this year.
See, I don't know about you, but I really enjoy bad stuff. So like bad movies, bad TV. So like the Game Awards just fits that like perfect amount of like video game media like badness that it goes back to being entertaining to me. It's like watching like I like going on YouTube and watching like compilations of like the worst E3 conferences over the years, because that stuff I love the cringe and the awfulness to it. So I look forward to the Game Awards every year for the memes and the cringe and all this stupid stuff that I don't know what they're doing or who they're trying to cater to, what audience it is, but it's certainly not me and it is funny nonetheless. So I like the Game Awards. There's always something interesting that happens. Yeah, it's kind of boring and I kind of have it off to the side while I'm, on the internet or whatever, but I wouldn't watch it with my full attention, right? But it makes for some good laughs every year and sometimes some good news announcements. So I look forward to it, actually.
You know what? I would look forward to it more if it was worse. Or if it was better. But I feel like it's just so mediocre that it's just like just a slog to get through. But you know what? I'm going in with low expectations. So it'll be easier for the Game Awards to surpass them for me this year. One thing that we should talk about, the internet is abuzz because one Brie Larson is presenting an award or something like that at the Game Awards. And so, of course, people are just like, she's there to announce something Metroid related.
No way.
Now, I don't necessarily think that that's true, but that would be pretty freaking cool if that ended up being the case.
Yeah, I think it's funny. Well, I don't want to say because the internet's full of a ton of people and it's not the same people, but like, some Metroid fans like, oh, don't want Brie Larson to do Metroid stuff at the same time. Oh my God, Brie Larson's there. Oh, must be announcing something Metro related. Can't wait. But obviously those are two different kinds of people, or usually two different people. That being said, yeah, I'm sure it has nothing to do with Metroid. Probably has something to do with Avengers or something Marvel related. I would have to expect because I don't know why else she would be there. I'm mostly excited because Stephen A. Smith is going to be there, and I'm a huge Stephen A. Smith fan. So
of course you are. Of course
how could you
are.
not be? Stephen A. Smith is hilarious. What are you talking about? Okay.
Oh my God.
I don't care. I know some people are like, oh, he's never talked about video games. I don't think he's ever said anything about video games. Who cares? He is hilarious. I don't care if he's never even touched a controller in his life. I don't care what he's there. He could talk. He could be talking about basketball for all I care. I'm very excited about that. I'm sure it's going to be a 30-second segment. He'll be there and gone in a blink of an eye. But it'll be funny, I hope, because he's funny and entertaining. So, yeah, +1 on that. I'm most excited for him. And the guy who, I don't know his name, the guy who said, like, The Oscars guy. He's there too. Come on. I mean, this is a star-studded lineup this year, man. I don't know what to tell you.
He was back last year too, though, and he wasn't half as entertaining, unfortunately.
Yeah, but it's like the trilogy, right? Like he's coming back for the third time's the charm. Like there's a lot more buzz, I think. Like they're bringing him back for this is it. Like this is the one. Like I don't know. I think a lot more people are excited to see him this year. That's just my general perception.
You know what? Before we move on from Brie Larson, actually, I have a little funny tidbit for you here, Dak. So I was interviewing the voice actress that does Zelda, or plays Zelda in the new Age of Calamity game, and I was asking the Zelda Dungeon community for questions, and one of them kind of jokingly asked, like, ask her if she thinks that Brie Larson should play Samus. So I did, and the voice actress that plays Zelda was just like, oh yeah, Brie Larson is great. So there you go. Chalk one up for the Brie Larson and Samus team.
I think it should be great, yeah.
I think it should be great too.
You know, and who are we to say if she wouldn't be, right? Like, who knows? No one's really tried it. So if she wants to give it a shot, hey, go for it. I'm down for it. I think, whatever.
All right. So I want to go over the Game of the Year nominations. We'll skip everything else, but I want to go over there. We could give a little pick, and maybe we can just quickly talk about any of the games that we've played on this Game of the Year list. So the nominations are Doom Eternal, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Ghost of Tsushima, Hades, Animal Crossing New Horizons, and The Last of Us Part 2. I think that this is since I can remember, this is the year with the fewest Game of the Year nominations that I've ever played. I've only played one of these games.
What, Animal Crossing?
You know what? No, actually, I'm not really a big Animal Crossing kind of guy.
hope Animal Crossing doesn't win. I know people want it to win. I don't think it should, to be honest. But
the only one that I've played is Final Fantasy VII Remake, which that would probably be my Game of the Year in general right now, anyways. But I mean, I feel like, and maybe it's just me, but I feel like this is kind of a soft year for games. Like I didn't have much to pick from, so I think I would go with Final Fantasy VII Remake as my personal pick, with maybe Ori and the Will of the Wisps kind of in second place there. But how many of these games have you played, Dak? And of the selection here, what would be your Game of the Year?
Let's see. I've obviously played Animal Crossing. I played a little. Still need to finish Doom Eternal. Great game though. I don't know if I'd pick it as Game of the Year, but maybe I will. It's a great game. Final Fantasy I didn't play, but I watched a bunch of, and that was cool. Hades again didn't play, but watched a bunch of. It feels like it's like indie Game of the Year. Is it Game of the Year though? I don't know. I've never been good at picking like what the Game of the Year is, to be honest. I feel like Last of Us 2 is kind of like the obvious pick. I feel like that's the one that's gonna win. And what was the other one?
So we got Doom Eternal, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Ghost of Tsushima.
Oh, Ghost of Tsushima. That's what it was. I think that might have a really good case for it. I think that game, which I also played some of and didn't finish. I'm not good at finishing games until like a little while later. I always get caught up in other games. But I thought that game was really good and felt like it felt like a really full experience. That was really enjoyable, and they also added some cool content throughout the year. That might be the solid pick, Game of the Year. Final Fantasy maybe too. I don't know. This is a hard one to pick from because I didn't really either get to play many of these games all the way through.
Right.
And yeah, it's an odd year for that. But I think it's probably going to be Last of Us or Final Fantasy is probably what's going to end up getting picked, is what I'm expecting.
So I was going to say, I think the favorite is The Last of Us, and the second favorite would be Ghost of Tsushima. So I'll pick Tsushima because I just want to be different from you. I think
I hope Tsushima
that's going to
wins.
be my pick.
Yeah.
You know what? I heard that it was like a really beautiful game, but I heard a lot of people describe it as kind of Assassin's Creed set in Japan. And I don't think that it was meant to be derogatory, but like I still have I've never recovered from Assassin's Creed Burnout when they released them like every single year, and they all got kind of.
They
worse
still
and worse
release them every single year.
I know, but like back when they were just like really bad,
Yeah, you're right. Maybe I'll just say Doom Eternal because Doom is cool. Big fan of Doom.
I've still never played Doom Eternal. Doom Eternal coming to the Switch, by the way, in like 2 weeks. So shout out to Doom and all. I bet you that he's excited. He's probably not.
Nuno's
Actually. I'm
definitely
sure he already
excited.
has it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's going to be going down on Thursday, and I'm pretty excited to check that out and watch. Even though last year wasn't very exciting, I think that this year probably has the potential to be. One thing that's been making its way around the rumor mill, Dak, is that what Brie Larson could be announcing at the Game Awards is that Samus is going to be a playable character in Fortnite. And I think that we've already got confirmation that both Kratos and Master Chief were in Fortnite. Is that correct?
So from what I saw, there was a leak of they would be like skins, right? So like a Master Chief skin and a Kratos skin. I saw some other things like a gravity hammer, pickaxe, and the pelican, and like a mini warthog, which I thought was funny because the mongoose exists, but I guess that's not as iconic. And so I saw images of that, and that seemed to be confirmed. And from what I read, it seemed like the person who leaked those, or like there was a rumor that Master Chief and Kratos and Samus would all be being added by skins to Fortnite, and then the Master Chief and Kratos images appeared, so people were like, oh, well, that means the Samus part of the rumor is also true. So I haven't seen any actual images of that, though, to confirm it, so it might just be Master Chief and Kratos, and maybe that part of the rumor isn't right, but it could very well be that Samus, at least as a skin, will be in Fortnite, a crossover that has hit the internet with mixed, I think, responses from many Metroid fans.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. But I thought that was interesting because I saw like, oh, Samus is trending, and I'm like, oh, why? And I saw it was Fortnite related. I was like, oh, this is gonna be good.
I've got bad news for you, Dak. Samus was not trending because of Fortnite, actually.
Oh wait, really? Oh no.
Samus was trending because let's just say there's an X-rated Samus video making the rounds around the internet.
Wait, what? Wait, are you serious?
Yep, I'm serious.
I didn't even see. Oh, wow, I can't believe that. I thought it was the Fortnite thing. I genuinely didn't know that. What the?
Yeah, you don't.
I missed out. I missed out.
So you kind of alluded to this, and I want to touch on this a little bit. Some people, when they heard that Samus was in Fortnite, literally were just like, "Oh, that's horrible! Fortnite doesn't deserve Samus. That's a stain on the Metroid name." I know how you feel about this, but like, and I feel the same. But I just like, I don't get it. In my mind, I'm like, that's so ridiculous because like, you want to talk about bringing new people to the Metroid series, like. Fortnite is still one of the biggest games in the world. Like, maybe it's not as popular as it was a year ago, but like, come on, you have so many people playing Fortnite and young kids playing Fortnite that it can work exactly the same way that Smash does, where it's like, oh, I really like this robot looking guy. Who's this Metroid person or this Samus person? They do a little bit of research and say like, oh, it's actually a she's from Metroid. I'm going to try one of these Metroid games. And hopefully by then we have Prime Trilogy or Prime 4 on the Switch. And it's like, wow, this is really fun. And like, you've got a new Metroid fan for life. It's such a simple formula to me, and it's so easy. And I guess I understand the people that are just like, oh, I don't like this. I think this sucks, and I think Fortnite sucks. And like, that's totally okay, right? You don't have to love Fortnite, but like, just think of the growth for the series and the exposure and the new fans that it'll bring. I don't know. I just like, I've never played a minute of Fortnite in my life, but like, man, I hope that this is true,
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think any kind of crossover, with some exceptions, is a really good idea for Metroid in general, and for most things. And this is definitely not an exception this is not an exception in that case. I think this is a great idea in that, like, I mean, I think it's awesome to have Samus show up in another game, especially a popular one. Like, I don't play Fortnite, but obviously Fortnite is super popular. I think a bit of a consensus for some people who don't like it is like, well, it's not really going to bring people into Metroid. Like, do you really think people playing or kids playing Fortnite really care about Metroid, or like would really get into it playing as using the Samus skin? And I'll admit that, like, yeah, it's probably more likely that someone playing Smash is going to get into Metroid because they're both Nintendo games and kind of, a little more similar than like Fortnite, which is not a Nintendo game, is only recently on, a Nintendo kind of platform and, isn't exactly the same as like Metroid itself or Smash. So I can kind of understand that, but I still do think people playing, kids or whoever playing Fortnite, whoever it is of any age, could still, play as Samus and be like, oh, this is cool, I might check it out. And at the very least, even if they don't, just having Samus appear in more media in general, I think is good. Like to have more visibility for the brand and more people at least be somewhat interested or at least see it, right? And be like, have some kind of reaction to it, I think is good. And then of course the other people like, oh, well, Fortnite sucks, blah, blah, blah. And like, Fortnite has, crossovers with John Wick and The Mandalorian and Marvel movies. Like, I don't think Metroid's above that, right? Like, I think it'd be cool.
Course.
I think that'd be awesome. And I don't think it devalues either. Like, it doesn't make Metroid any less like good or anything. If anything, I think it legitimized it a little bit to have Samus up with all those other big properties, right? So yeah, I think this is awesome. Will it get me to play Fortnite? It might, honestly. When I'm gonna play it though, I'm like, these sweaty 15-year-olds who can build in 2 seconds are gonna destroy me. I'm probably gonna play like a game or two. Like, all right, I'm good on that. But the Master Chief stuff is exciting to me, and I'd like to see more Halo representation, and then Metroid too. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a great idea, and I hope that's the thing. I hope that it's real. We haven't seen any confirmation. I would like to see that happen though. I think that'd be really sick.
I feel like. So what I described were like young kids play as Samus and they're like, oh, this is cool. They get into Metroid. So that's the best case scenario, right? The worst case scenario is nothing. It's risk free. Like if you put Samus in and people are just like, oh, neat. This is a nice skin to play as. Played it once. I'm going to try something else. Like there is no risk. It's not like you're dragging down the good name of Samus by putting her into Fortnite, or you're not dragging down Metroid. It's literally just like 100% risk-free with the potential for rewards. Like, I agree. I agree with you. There's probably not a lot of people, or there's not as many people that are going to be, playing Fortnite and get into Metroid the same way that I think a lot of people did with Smash. But like, I think that there's probably enough that can make it worthwhile. Because like, I can't imagine it's a huge cost to anybody to make this happen. It's probably just the licensing deal, which Nintendo and Metroid would benefit from anyways. So, yeah, I don't know. This is such a no-brainer to me. I think that Metroid Anywhere is a good option. And I know that we Metroid fans are like, we're very protective of Metroid, and rightfully so, because, I mean, when Metroid is good, there's nothing better. But when it's been bad, like in Other M and Federation Force, it feels like one more bad thing in the Metroid series could spell the end of it. So like, I get that we're all protective of Metroid, but like, eventually you have to do things to level up and take your franchise into the next step, right? So I think that this could be one of many things, and it may be nothing, but it could get some new eyeballs onto Metroid. So yeah, I don't know. I just saw a lot of people really reacting negatively to this, and I was like, man, I hope that this is true.
Yeah, I 100% feel that. As a big Metroid fan, I think this is awesome. Put Samus in more things. I want to see her do the default dance for Fortnite. I don't care. Who cares if it's silly or a little dumb? It's video games. Like,
Yeah.
All right? Like, who cares? But yeah, I think I hope we get some cool news at the Game Awards soon. I know the Master Chief and Kratos stuff hasn't been like fully confirmed yet, so maybe they'll pop all three at the Game Awards, and who knows where it'll go. And yeah, maybe it'll bring some new people into Metroid. If it doesn't, it's still a cool thing, and at least it's some brand awareness. At the very least, for some people who play Metroid and also Fortnite, it'll be cool for them. Maybe some Metroid fans will check out Fortnite. But I like to think, yeah, like you said, a few people would check out Metroid as well. If they did, hopefully they'd enjoy it.
Yep, I agree. What do you think the chances are that we get a Metroid Prime trilogy announcement at the Game Awards, or like a Metroid anything announcement? Give me a percentage. What do you think those chances are?
All right, so a Metroid anything being like a 5% chance. Like a Metroid any game, like trilogy, a Prime 4 related, or Metroid 5 or whatever, like 5% chance, if that. I think it's so low. Of all the things Nintendo could announce, like I think they're going to be packing some heat if they're going to, but they don't really ever go too hard. If anything, they might even do another Smash announcement. I think that's probably more likely. So I'm going to put it to like the 5, maybe 10% range if it's like Metroid Prime trilogy related. But even then, like the trilogy is like, it's a big thing for us Metroid fans, but I think in the grand scheme of, and even for sub Nintendo fans and like, some communities on the internet. But I think in the grand scheme of things, it wouldn't be like the craziest announcement. I think it would be a great announcement and like a good one, but for the Game
Right.
Awards, I don't know if that's like what they would go with, because the Game Awards is like a more like broader, mainstreamier, casually at times audience, and so I think they'd probably want to reveal something that's more speaks to a bigger crowd, I guess.
Yeah, you know what? I was gonna say like 5% as well. I think the most
Copycat.
likely. I know. I'm stealing all of your ideas today. The most likely thing I think is definitely trilogy because I have to imagine that is like ready to go and they're just I don't know what they're waiting for, but I have to imagine that it's ready to
They just
go.
gotta grab some emulators off the internet like they did with the Mario collection. Easy, easy, done.
Easy.
I could do it for them. Easy.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's not really any Switch 2021 games announced. I think there's like Mario U or whatever the Wii U
The
game was called.
Well, isn't there like a new? Well, there's a new version of Mario and Rabbids coming out, right? Isn't there like an expansion?
I don't
And
think so.
isn't there? I thought there was. There was.
There is some DLC, but that came out forever ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah.
I could have sworn that was for
Um,
2021. I think they've only got like. Uh, I don't
not a lot.
even. Not
So
much.
my point is that like I feel like we're gonna see
Zelda, maybe that's it.
some. Oh, I you know what? I don't even
Breath of the
think we're gonna
Wild
see
2.
Zelda. Oh man, if that happens, I will lose my mind. But I can't imagine that that's happening at the Game Awards. But fingers crossed. I think we have to see something from Nintendo though, because like you've got one game to show for 2021, and we are like 3 weeks away from 2021. So hopefully they show us
Oh,
something.
this they probably won't show at the Video Game Awards, but Super Mario 3D World and Bowser's Fury, that's coming out on February 12th in 2021. So
Yes,
that's what I
fair.
was referring to, but that's not a new game.
No, I think that's a Wii U port. And the other game
Yeah,
the other game
it's
I
a
was
Wii
thinking of
U
was a Wii U
port with
port
like
too.
some added content,
Yeah,
new
yeah.
content.
Well, I hope that they announce something cool. You know what? We, in the spirit of Samus in Fortnite potentially happening, Dak and I kind of put our heads together and we thought of some of our absolute favorite Metroid cameos that we've seen over the years. And yeah, one of the ones that always stuck out to me, Dak, because it seemed so random. And I have never played a minute of this game in my life, but when Samus's car got into Rocket League, I thought that was so cool because Rocket League is like this huge, gaming platform now. Like it's a game as service platform, and I was just like, I was so flabbergasted that a Metroid car got into Rocket League, and I thought it was so cool, and it always really stuck out to me as kind of it made me proud of Metroid in that moment. Plus, Samus's car looks like freaking awesome in that game, and you play Rocket League, right?
I do, but I play Rocket League on PC, so I can't use that. It's only on
Oh
Switch.
no.
So like, which I get, obviously, it's like a Switch exclusive skin, but I do think that is cool. I just wish that I could use it on PC, which is where I play the game. I do think that is awesome though, like to have that reference to the Metroid games in a like a really popular game. Though that collaboration did happen like I want to say a couple of years ago. So
A
Rocket
couple of
League,
years ago, yeah.
yeah, like Rocket League's much bigger now. So maybe they'll do another round of Nintendo skins at some point. That'd be cool.
That'd be good. And there's a ton of them. These different skins. There's like the classic Various suit. There's like this fusion suit looking car skin. I don't know. It looks very cool. I thought it always really stuck out to me as being kind of one of my favorites. Another, it's more a cameo really than a crossover. But one of the ones that I always remember, it was the first time that I had ever seen Metroid in another game at all. I'll never forget it. Playing Super Mario RPG as a
God
kid,
damn it! I was
and you
gonna
run
say
into
that.
Samus in the end. It was great.
Yeah, I was gonna say that she's like sleeping in her bed or something
Yes,
in her suit.
and she's mumbling about like Mother Brain.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. It always stuck with me as one of my like absolute favorites. I was going through this list earlier actually, and like Samus is really been in a lot of different games, more than I remember. Um, like there's quite a bit more than I remember actually. There's like Dynasty Warriors. You can fight as Zero Suit Samus. Zero Suit Samus also shows up as a skin in Fatal Frame in a very risque Zero Suit as well. And then I almost forgot about this, but like I remember playing Bayonetta and downloading the Samus skin, and like I just wore that the whole game. So yeah, there's a lot of like cool different Metroid crossovers, and I'm hoping that we can add to that list pretty soon with Fortnite.
Oh, for sure. I'm trying to think. So you took the Super Mario RPG one. Well, I can't really be that mad about it because that's like such an obvious pick. I'm trying to think of some other ones that I enjoyed from Animal Crossing. I want to say I think there are a couple like Metroid items you can grab, like her helmet or like a ship in the previous games, and I always like the Animal Crossing items you could get. Which I don't know. Whenever I would play Animal Crossing, that would always be a cool thing to get the Metroid stuff. I also know in like Hollow Knight they have these kind of floating. They're called umus. So if you ever played Hollow Knight, they look like Metroids. They're like big, like Metroid larva stage, like almost like jellyfish. Those are really cool. That was always like one of my favorite things to notice in Hollow Knight. Obviously, Guacamelee has a bunch. Also, in I don't know if you ever have played this, but I want to say in Heroes of the Storm, the Blizzard game, there is
No, I've never played that.
the medic from StarCraft 2 has a skin that is the coloring is for the Various suit. It's like orange with red in the middle and yellow, and then like a green kind of like pack or whatever, and like an orange shield. So it has like the Various suit kind of look to it. Even her like helmet has like a green visor, and it's actually it's a pretty cool it's a pretty good look. And I remember always being like, oh, that's why I would play medic in Heroes of the Storm. I'll send you I just sent you the image on Discord so you can look real quick.
Cool.
Yeah, so I even believe there's actually a Metroid larva on one of the maps in StarCraft 2. I'm trying to remember the name of it. It was on some map, but you could see in a 2v2 map
That
or a
looks
1v1
awesome,
map.
actually. This Heroes of the Storm.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
there's
looks
a couple. I don't think they ever added it, but people wanted like Blizzard to add like a Farah skin for Overwatch. Like Farah's the rocket launcher, like jetpack character. She's from I believe Egypt, and it's a pretty cool character that I would use a lot. And she has like an arm cannon or like a rocket launcher or whatever. And I don't think they ever end up adding like a Samus skin, but people thought they would because of like the Heroes of the Storm thing. That'd always be cool, or would be cool.
Two other ones that stuck out to me. I thought of you instantly when I saw this deck. So the good news is that it's not Samus, but our boy Ridley made a cameo in another game. The bad news is that it was in Dead or Alive, which was developed by Team Ninja, and it was the Metroid Other M version of Ridley. And like this looks basically exactly like the stage that they have in Smash 4, and like Ridley shows up as a stage hazard, and you fight him, and he's got the same kind of weird beak that he has in Metroid Other M. So it's cool to see him show up in another game, and not just Samus, but like a little bit too bad that this is the version of Ridley that we get. So I thought that was funny.
I do remember that. This was Dead or Alive Dimensions for the DS or whatever it was. And I think that's... Yeah, it was like it had like the 3D enabled... I think it was like for the 3DS, I think, right?
Yeah.
It was like an early 3DS game, like 2011, 2012 or whatever. And I want to say that I was excited because I thought that Samus might be in the game because they added that stage and like she'd be an unlockable character. Like, oh, I'm gonna finally get into Dead or Alive because of this. And they never did that. They only added the Metroid Other M stage, and I still thought it was cool, even though it was from Other M, which sucks. And it had the Other M version of Ridley. I still thought it was pretty sick to have like a Metroid stage and like Ridley actually showing up, and then like Samus shows up with a power bomb and all of that. Like I thought that was kind of cool. Dead or Alive has had some cool crossovers. It had like one of the Spartans in Dead or Alive 4 or 5 on the Xbox at one point. And there are a bunch of cool games that have had like good fighting game crossovers. I would love to see Samus in an actual fighting game. Like if they ever put her in like Soul Calibur or Tekken. Like I think she, other than Link, like they've done Link already. So, it's Soul Calibur 2 and he sucked. Even though he's really cool and I used him all the time. I think if they did another...
Link was awesome.
Link is categorically the worst character in the game. Anyway, he's really cool, and I used him, but he is the worst character in the game. Anyway, but if they did another kind of crossover with that in like Soul Calibur or Tekken or whatever, I think Samus would be such a cool pick. But I thought this was cool. I thought this was like an awesome like little nod to Metroid. It was like 1-to-1 for what happens in Other M, like the stage itself. And yeah, this was a cool crossover. I wish they did more with it.
Yeah, maybe it's because I've got Warriors fever because I've been playing so much Age of Calamity, but like I really would love now to see Metroid Warriors because like this genre has I've been won over. It won me over
Oh well,
with Age
let's
of
get into that
Calamity.
because I know we made a little bit of a list of like our favorite Metroid cameos and crossovers, but like let's go into we've done this a little bit before, but I wanted to do this again, like ideas for Metroid crossovers, like and you want a Metroid Warriors, right?
Well, you know what? So originally I pitched that because I was like, well, it seems to make sense. Like it kind of fits with the brand. They've done Zelda slash Warriors. They've done Fire Emblem slash Warriors. That one just made the most logical sense to me. But I wasn't a fan of the Warriors games. I don't like the first Hyrule Warriors. I don't like Fire Emblem Warriors. But man, Age of Calamity is like really, really good. It's really won me over and got me kind of like thinking like, okay, I'd be down to see like a Metroid Hunters style game where like you can play as all the different like hunters and everyone has their own abilities and like you can unlock Ridley at the end and like he can tear enemies up and stuff like that. It won me over to the concept. Before I kind of suggested it as like I think it's logical and would make sense and it would have like a somewhat like a more realistic chance of happening than most of the other crossovers, even though it doesn't have a good chance of happening at all. But now I'm just like, yeah, I would love to see this.
I think it'd be cool. I've never gotten into the Warriors games. I'm not really a big like mash on random hordes of like generic enemies kind of guy. So I never really got into
Yeah.
Warriors. I still have to try out Age of Calamity. I think the biggest thing for me is like the whole plot implications and the Zelda characters, but I didn't play the first Hyrule Warriors for that reason because of the mashy kind of gameplay. Now I'm more interested. I still got to check it out. Metroid Warriors, it still feels like to me like Metroid speaks more to like an FPS like multiplayer kind of game than like a beat 'em up like warrior style game, just because of like how Metroid works that you both in 2D and 3D. But I think it would be cool to open it up in terms of characters, right? Because there are a bunch of characters that like enemy types and all of that might not work in like an FPS or something like that, or like Ridley, rather than a Warriors game where they'd probably work a lot better in. So I would play it for sure, 100% if they made a Metroid Warriors
Yeah.
game. Yeah.
Well, I think what I've learned from Age of Calamity is that, like, in order for a game like that to work, like, it has to mean something. It can't just be a random, like,
Agreed.
mash-a-thon. Like, there has to be a story reason behind it. There has to be focus behind it. I mean, like, for me, like, surprisingly, Age of Calamity is actually pretty heavy on story. And, like, it is, button mashing and stuff like that for sure. But that
But
you
there's a
can
purpose
add
to
a
it.
little bit of there's a purpose to it and like there's different enemy varieties enough that it feels like at least you're not doing it for no reason.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that's why I'm interested in it. That's why that's the thing with the Metroid Warriors game is that if it is just like it has all these random Metroid characters and they're on some like I don't know nonsense kind of plot like whatever, I'd be like, I'll play it because it's Metroid, but I'd be more interested if it has some kind of plot implications or it has some kind of meaning to it and wasn't just like a fan fiction mash game, which I think like the first Hyrule Warriors pretty much is, right? I don't
Oh,
know if I'd
it
want
totally
that kind of
is.
version. I'd want more of like an Age of Calamity kind of Metroid Warriors than a Hyrule Warriors original kind of Metroid Warriors.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I would love to see it now though. Age of
I,
Calamity won me over.
you know what I want to see? I still really want to see the crossover with Samus, Doomslayer, and Master Chief, the adventure of a lifetime, where the three strongest warriors in the galaxy go on some epic adventure, some epic quests, and all pal around and destroy alien life together. That's the crossover I really want to see. If you follow me on Twitter, I retweet some artwork of that a bunch. I love that. That's currently my favorite fan thing right now is the three of them going on an adventure. Let's make it happen. Microsoft owns two of the IPs. Nintendo owns one. Have the three of them go together. Doesn't have to be canon, but I think they could do a cool story. Like imagine Samus, Master Chief, Doomslayer, like Arbiter versus like like a Gravemind Ridley. Like, how sick would that be? I think that would be so awesome. I thought that would be really cool, and I've been wanting that for so long. More than Metroid Warriors, damn it.
I say just add them to Smash.
Just have them to
I'd
Smash.
rather, yeah, I'd rather that.
You wouldn't want like a whole cool like Metroid Prime-ish Halo Doom kind of game with the three of them. You wouldn't be down for that. How epic would that be?
I mean, I'd play it.
Yeah.
I'd play it. Yeah, but the thing with me is like when a game kind of exists in like its own canonical bubble and doesn't really relate to anything, it's a little bit less attractive to me. So I mean, I'd play it though if it was kind of goofy and fun and big and like I'd play it.
Now, I think we've talked about this before, but are there any other like Nintendo franchises you'd want to see? I know we've talked about it previously, but maybe your mind has changed a little bit. Are there any other like Nintendo franchises you'd want Metroid to mix up a little bit with?
F-Zero is still perfect. It's the perfect series. They can totally exist in the same world. The tone is the same. The tenor is the same. That's the obvious answer. I don't know. I think that's. I'd be more interested in like a Metroid Dead Space crossover. Like that would be so cool. Or like Metroid Zone of Ender. I don't know, something like that. If it's just strictly Nintendo, F-Zero is the one that makes sense to me. And like get Captain Falcon out of the Blue Falcon and have him doing some actual bounty hunter stuff like he's supposed to be. Other than that, no, not really. I feel like, if it was a serious crossover, F-Zero is the one. And if it's just a big, goofy, dumb crossover, then, like, I mean, bring it on. Like, let's talk Star Fox, let's talk whatever, right? Like, it kind of depends on the tone and tenor of the game.
Well, I put a little bit of a list together for you of some other ideas I had real quick to run through for you. And I do agree on that point. I think it is important to know, like, the serious versus not serious thing. But I've thought about this more. I think my stance on it on Metroid crossovers in the past was different. But now I'm like, bring it on. Give me some serious Metroid and Pikmin crossover, Metroid and Star Fox crossover, like, and make it super serious. Like, you know what? I think that would be entertaining. But here's some that I was thinking of. So I still think Metroid and Zelda would be really cool. Like either Samus somehow gets like thrown into the past, into Hyrule somehow, and like deals with that, or like a future Link in like Samus's world. I think that'd be really sick, and see it from their both perspectives. Obviously, Star Fox would be cool, like a ground and airspace fighting kind of game. I always thought Kid Icarus and Metroid makes the most sense because they're like kind of counterparts in a way, right? Mm-hmm. Like one's more angels and demons, one's all aliens and space warriors, but they're very much one and the same, especially the originals. Like maybe like a co-op 2D side scroller, but instead of like Tropical Freeze like Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong, it's Pit and Samus somehow. I think that'd be kind of cool. Bayonetta and Zero Suit Samus action game, boom, easy, done. I also thought it'd be cool to somehow put together Metroid and Fire Emblem and do like a tactical RPG with like the Galactic Federation versus some kind of futuristic like Fire Emblem empire or something, and Samus is like one of the main generals or something like that. I always thought a tactical RPG or tactical Metroid game would be really cool. Some kind of like RTS or tactical Fire Emblem style RPG would be up Metroid's alley, and if they're gonna do a crossover, Fire Emblem would make the most sense.
I agree. I think Fire Emblem would be sweet.
Yeah. Paper Metroid, gotta do that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. For sure.
And Xenoblade, I was against this last time we talked about this, but if they did like a Xenoblade X crossover, because that's like with all the mechs and whatnot, I could maybe see that happen. It still feels a little too anime-y for me for Metroid. So I don't know how that would work, but at this point, like, anime goes hand in hand with sales. You gotta make things more anime.
I think it could work too, because like each Xenoblade title is like different in its art style. Like maybe not like drastically different, but like you can make those characters look more realistic. Like the Xenoblade X characters look far more realistic than like the Xenoblade 2 characters do, right? So like, I think that could exist.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with you there. They feel, even though it feels anime, it feels a little more like, not grounded, but I guess like more realistic. Those are my ideas for Nintendo ones. Obviously, like non-Nintendo, you got your Dooms, your Dead Space I thought was a good one. Obviously Halo, Metal Gear Solid would be interesting. I think imagine like Snake versus Samus somehow, or like a stealth like that could be like your stealth Metroid game. Resident Evil would be like a cool horror crossover. Obviously Castlevania. I feel like you got to put the two of those together.
Oh yeah.
If you could somehow do that. Monster Hunter, put like Ridley in a Monster Hunter game and just have it be Ridley.
You know what? Actually, Samus is in Monster Hunter. I meant to bring that up and I forgot.
Oh right, yeah. She's it's
like
a skin or something.
She's DLC, I think. And no, I think she's like her own character. She's like,
oh really?
Yeah, she's in Monster Hunter 4 and she is in Zero Suit form. She has this like ginormous arm cannon as her weapon.
That's cool.
It's pretty cool.
There you go.
You know what? I like the Fire Emblem idea a lot because like I feel like it would be cool to see a futuristic version of Fire Emblem that kind of mixed up with Metroid, because I love the Fire Emblem games. I think that they're so fun. I really like that genre in particular. You know what? Surprisingly, the only one I hate is Zelda and Metroid, which is funny because they're my two favorite series in this.
Why?
In this world.
Why do you not want to see these two things mixed?
You know why I think I do is because when I play Zelda and when I play Metroid, I play them to get different things out of those series, if that makes sense. So like,
okay.
I don't know. Maybe it's just like you don't want to mix one great cocktail with another great cocktail because you're worried that you're going to get this really off-putting drink. I'm not really sure. I mean, obviously, I would play the heck out of that because that scratches literally every itch that I have. But I think that I would rather see the other ones before that one, I think.
That's fair. I think with the Metroid Zelda crossover, at least how I feel, like it would be more of like a Zelda game with Samus in it or a Metroid game with Link in it, Like I'm not sure how they would really mix the two together to like if they somehow mix the two formulas together like and really made it like its own distinct thing, that would be cool, but like I'm imagining like a Breath of the Wild style Zelda game and like Samus like hits the ground like a huge meteor as like some other kind of character you got to deal with or something, or like, Link traversing kind of a more futuristic area and has to ally with Samus, right? But that's interesting. You wouldn't want those. You would want the other one because I feel like Zelda and Metroid would be so epic to see like Link and Samus kind of fighting or teaming up. I think that'd be cool.
Yeah, that would be cool. And I think that like a cyberpunk kind of Zelda would be very cool. And like you could probably weave Samus into that if you were gonna go and do that route. You know what? Maybe if it was like cyberpunk setting instead of like the classical Zelda as we know it, I'd probably be more down for that. Yeah, I think
people have wanted like a futuristic Zelda for a while, so like that'd be kind of a cool way to do it. Like have it be like Link somehow, like a future Link in somehow in the Metroid universe or related to it. Like I think that'd be sick. And at the very least, you wouldn't have to like feel like you got to do a full Zelda future game. You kind of dip your toes into it, but at the same time, like a canon futuristic Zelda game on its own would also be sick, I think.
Shameless plug here, but we're actually in a couple weeks over on the Champions Cast. We're doing an episode like basically what would a cyberpunk Zelda game look like, and I'm gonna do this episode after I've had a chance to play Cyberpunk 2077. So yeah, I'm got a lot. I'll have a lot of ideas on that in the future for sure. All right, well there we go. I'm hoping that Samus gets into Fortnite. I really am. I think that would be good. I'm hoping that Nintendo kind of smartens up here. I think that would be good. I'm hoping that the Game Awards don't suck. That would be great. And to bookmark this episode, we started with Federation Force. I'm going to end with Federation Force here. I nearly forgot to say, but one of my favorite Metroid cameos is the Federation Force poster in Luigi's Mansion 3. I popped big time when I saw that. I thought it was great. So
that you love to see. I actually didn't know about that, but that's a funny poster of all things to be in there. That's perfect for Luigi's Mansion. So fitting.
It's crazy, and it's because the same developers worked on both games. It's crazy how they made such a great game in Luigi's Mansion 3 and then such a stinker with Federation Force, but I'm sure that their budgets were maybe a little bit different. Dak, let's get out of here, and hopefully, fingers crossed, 5% chance we have some Metroid news to talk about next week. Thank you guys for listening, and of course, thank you for checking us out over on Podbean and iTunes and Apple Pods, wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for checking us out, liking, subscribing. Leave us a 5-star review if you think we've earned it. We'd really appreciate that. And of course, check us out over on Twitter. I am at Spateri316. Dak is at DakCity_, and we are at Omega Metroid Pod. We are out of time, but hopefully we'll be talking to you on Thursday night. If not, then we'll see you next week. Take care.